Do you think you're bad at public speaking, at facilitating workshops, or at imagining futures? Well, you might have to change your mindset, because it is likely that your mindset is keeping you from improving. That's the main premise in Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. In her book, Carol Dweck contrasts a fixed mindset, where people think that their abilities are fixed, with a growth mindset, where people think that through effort and learning one can improve one's abilities. The book provides compelling evidence and practical strategies for cultivating a growth mindset, leading to greater success, resilience, and fulfillment in various aspects of life. I had shared in an online facilitation forum my difficulties of instilling a futures mindset in participants of my foresight workshops. And one of the commenters on my post suggested that I read Carol Dweck's book. And much of the information in the book resonated with me as I'm learning to improve my coaching and facilitation skills. It also underlined the importance of a right mindset when thinking about the future, and made me think through how best to apply a growth mindset in a futures context. Carol Dweck is a renowned psychologist at Stanford University. She is widely recognized for her groundbreaking research on motivation, mindset, and achievement, which impacts the fields of education and personal development. Her research focuses on understanding how people's beliefs about intelligence and abilities affect their motivation, their behavior, and ultimately their success. Dweck argues that people can be categorized into two basic mindsets: a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The fixed mindset upholds the idea that people's abilities are innate and unchangeable. So you are either good at public speaking or you are not. You are either good at facilitating workshops or you are not. You are either good at imagining futures or you are not. In a fixed mindset, human characteristics and abilities are set in stone. So as a consequence, humans are finished products. They do not develop further. When I was in school, I was bad at maths, and I kept telling myself I cannot do maths. But when I was close to finishing school, I had to choose maths as an oral presentation for my A-levels. And that's where I started putting in effort, listening in class, doing the exercises, and my grades gradually improved. So I shifted from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Now, this wasn't a conscious shift in my mind. The shift happened because I had to choose that subject, maths, as an oral exam. There was an external change which affected my mindset. The growth mindset starts from a very different point. Everyone has potential to learn and develop further. With enough motivation, effort, and concentration, any of us can improve any ability that we choose to. But that doesn't mean that we'll become the best at that particular ability, because there is such a thing as talent. There are some people that find it easier to be good at certain tasks. So when I grew up, I played tennis. I didn't have a great talent in tennis. I was no Roger Federer, but I also didn't put in the effort that Roger Federer did when he was a child. I just did not have the drive and the motivation to succeed in tennis. But even if you have God-given talent, you can further develop your skills. So Roger Federer had talent, but he didn't stop training. He put in hours and hours and hours of work on the tennis court in order to improve his skills. So a child with the same talent as Roger Federer, who doesn't put in the same amount of effort, will not reach the same level of expertise when it comes to tennis. So talent helps, but talent plus effort further improves the skills. So rather than saying you are bad at public speaking, you have to say you are not yet proficient at public speaking. And that little word "yet" is quite important because it demonstrates that there is room for improvement. So by practicing, by putting yourself into situations where you have to speak in public, you will continuously improve your public speaking skills, and eventually you will get to a decent level. You might not be the best if you are lacking talent, but you will definitely be able to improve the skills as they are now. So which mindset we choose has an impact on our personal development. And Carol Dweck showed this with her research. Let me explain by describing an experiment that Carol Dweck did with 4-year-old children. The children were asked to put together a relatively easy puzzle. Once finished, they were asked whether they want to do another easy puzzle or whether they wanted to attempt a puzzle that was a little bit more difficult. The outcome? Kids with a fixed mindset chose to do another easy puzzle because smart kids don't make mistakes. Kids with a growth mindset chose to do harder puzzles because they wanted to challenge themselves. They said, I'm dying to figure them out. This experiment shows that our mindset determines how we define success or failure. For people with a fixed mindset, success is extremely important because success determines their value as a person. Fixed mindset people are always looking to be successful, and failure is a setback. So people with a fixed mindset will avoid challenging tasks because the risk of failure is too high, and failure lowers their self-esteem or their value. People with a growth mindset view failure quite differently. Failure is not growing, not challenging yourself, not fulfilling your potential. Dweck uses this soundbite from the 60s to demonstrate this way of thinking. Becoming is more important than being. This means it is more important to face our challenges, sometimes to not succeed and hence to grow, than it is to always be successful. Of course, people with a growth mindset are also motivated by success and motivated to be successful. But success is not an innate ability or a skill, innate skill. Success comes through effort and learning. So if you are growth-minded and interested in learning foresight skills, then subscribe to this channel. We post videos that help you develop your skills and the mindset you need to anticipate and adapt to change, to navigate uncertainty, and to pursue your goals. While Carol Dweck did most of her research with kids, the same concept applies to adults and business leaders. Fixed-minded leaders use their company's performance as a symbol for their personal success. They must also constantly reaffirm their superiority and therefore often do not allow other leaders beside them. Personal or business failure is a setback that gets in the way of their career ambitions. They must also show that the product or the strategy that they have created is the best, and they find it hard to adapt products or strategies or to change the path that they have chosen because that would be a setback. This means that fixed-minded leaders often focus on short-term gains in order to boost their self-confidence at the expense of the long-term future of a business. On the other hand, growth-minded leaders are open to information from different perspectives, from different people, change and adapt accordingly, and set processes in place to ensure a future-proof business that is not reliant on them as a leader. This makes me think that growth-minded people are more likely to be futures thinkers than fixed-minded people. Now, what is important to realize is that we are not necessarily fixed-minded or growth-minded, but that there's a continuum between those two perspectives. Also, we can change our mindset, and we might have different mindsets within different aspects of our lives. We are constantly improving, or as Carol Dweck says, you don't get a growth mindset by proclamation. You move toward it by taking a journey. My biggest takeaway from the book was that I started reflecting on my mindset, and it also made me think how I could incorporate this concept of growth mindset within futures thinking. And I believe that similarly to being able to develop a growth mindset, we are able to develop a futures thinking mindset or a futures mindset. So keep an eye on the channel because I'm thinking of releasing a video that discusses futures mindset. And remember, we are not failing, we are simply learning for next time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on developing a growth mindset. So share your experiences or any questions that you might have in the comments below.